Florida's Republican Governor Ron DeSantis has been dodging reporters all week after a bombshell report from the Wall Street Journal named him among Trump associates with whom Lev Parnas exchanged text messages. And we have to remind our viewers that Lev Parnas and another Giuliani associate, Igor Fruman, were indicted for violating campaign finance laws by funneling foreign money into U.S. elections. They gave $50,000 to DeSantis during his gubernatorial race in 2018. But once Parnas and Fruman were arrested, DeSantis wound up returning their donation. And he has been insisting ever since that he doesn't know Lev Parnas like that, although picture after picture after picture proves otherwise, including this photo that the House Judiciary Committee released in a massive trove of evidence last night. Joining me now is Steve Conterno, political editor for the Tampa Bay Times. And, you know, I'm so glad that you're here, Steve, because I think for a lot of people, this story about all that was happening in Ukraine is a New York Ukraine story, but it's also in a lot of ways a Florida story. These guys live in Florida. They operate out of Florida. What have you been able to find just from your reporting about the relationship, if any, between Lev Parnas, Igor Fruman, and the current governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis?
Yeah, all roads seem to lead back to Florida. That always seems to be the source of a lot of these stories. But Governor Ron DeSantis and Lev Parnas were first introduced back in May at a pro-Israel event. We don't know how or who introduced them. The governor has refused to answer that question. I've tried to ask him multiple times when I've seen him that question. But over the next 7 months after that, they had a number of run-ins over the course of his campaign for governor. There was fundraisers. In the final days before the election, Parnas and Fruman were seen at several campaign events with Rudy Giuliani. And then on the night of his victory, they were there, and Governor DeSantis hugged them both. We had a photographer at the event. When all this started coming out, we went through our photo archives, and we found a series of photos of him hugging both these men. And then we later found out that they were VIPs at his inauguration. Now, the governor has said that he knows Parnas. He doesn't know Fruman very well. His office insists all their interactions were benign. They were related to the campaign, related to fundraising. But there's still a lot of questions that we don't know, and the governor won't answer them, including why there were text messages potentially between him and Parnas that were included in documents turned over to impeachment investigators, according to the Wall Street Journal.
This guy, Lev Parnas, and maybe Igor Fruman as well, clearly knew and were hugging the current governor of Florida. They're pictured with Pam Bondi, who was the Attorney General of Florida. They seem to know Donald Trump, his kids, his son-in-law, on and on and on. Have you, in your political reporting history, known of anyone who was in that position to be taking pictures with people at VVIP parties with the President of the United States and with top officials in the state of Florida and not know any of these people, not know them at all, just wind up in pictures with them?
You know, that's a good question. I think we've seen in sort of the social media era a lot of people trying to get selfies with they get access to these events, and then they want a picture, and then they use these photos to sort of portray themselves as powerful people or connected to powerful people. The woman who was arrested, Cindy Yang, the woman at Mar-a-Lago who penetrated there, she had a very similar story as well. So there are sort of these ways that these unsavory, sort of unknown figures can get access to politicians by making donations. The difference here is we know that Governor Ron DeSantis had several personal meetings with these individuals, had met them and had them at campaign events, and then they were VIPs at his inauguration. There was a memo that I reported on several months ago that the night before his inauguration, they were specifically added as VIPs at this event. The governor's office says that he didn't know that they were added, but there was someone within his organization who specifically added them.
And very quickly, is there any evidence that some of this foreign money that was being funneled into American elections is the money that was being funneled to the current governor, Ron DeSantis, by Mr. Parnas?
We don't know. It's sort of funny. The indictment includes allegations out of Nevada and also Texas. But for all the money that was thrown around in Florida by these guys, they also gave to Rick Scott. They gave to a congressman. There are no allegations in the indictment related to Florida. But we do know there was an insinuation of a multi-state marijuana scheme that included Nevada, and there are some reports that they may have tried to penetrate in Florida as well. But as for the source of their money and any sort of wrongdoing, there's not any allegations thus far.
We hate to do the what would have, but I just wonder if Andrew Gillum had won a very, very narrow race in Florida and then was found tied to somebody who'd been indicted for campaign finance violations. I just wonder how the news cycle would have gone for him, because Ron DeSantis, other than your great reporting, has pretty much gotten skated by on it. Steve Contarno, thank you very much. Really appreciate you being here. Thank you. And more AM Joy after. Thank you. More AM Joy.